Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshwari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai. We'll continue on with chapter 61 from the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, the Devi, retold by Ramesh Menon. Vedavyasa went on. Narada then asked, Bhagavan, the Devi always was, I have heard, long before this world of the five elements. Why did she incarnate herself as five separate Devis? Narayana said, indeed, even as the Atman, the Nabo Mandala of the cosmic space, Kala, who is time, the 10 quarters, the golden egg of the universe, Golaka and Vaikuntha, Dham, below are eternal, so too is the Mula Prakriti, the Maya of the eternal Brahman. Atman and Prakriti are fused inseparably, just as the sun and its light, or fire and its heat, the lotus and her beauty. Even as the goldsmith can make no ornaments without gold, so also the Purusha can create no worlds or lives without his all-powerful Prakriti. Sha means grace, and Kti is power. The Devi, the Shakti, bestows both these. Once in the beginning, the Lord, who was neither male nor female and both potentially, divided himself into two, a Purusha and a Shakti. His left half was a woman and his right a man. The woman, the goddess, was absolutely beautiful. The male looked upon this female, and was stricken with pristine love, and he wanted to fill her with it, with himself. She was as luminous as the lotus of 1,000 petals, the bloom of the soul. She glanced at him sidelong, and he was lost, and she too was lost in love with that dark Krishna, who was the other half of the Paramatman. Her great eyes greedily drank the light of his perfect face. The Purusha, lord of the Kalpa, took her hand and drew her into the Rasa Mandala. There they made love for the first time ever, awesome love. It was told that she sweated at his embrace, and the sweat pouring from her body inundated the universe. It became the salty ocean. At his thrust-like stars, she gasped out, panted, and her breath became the life breath, the prana of all the jivas. From that prana too, a Devi was born from his left side, and they saw each other, were seized with desire, and began to mate. From that tumultuous meeting that it lasted eons, 5 sons were born to that primeval, Vayu and his Shakti, Prana, Apana, Samana, Udana, and Dhyana, who are the 5 vital Vayus of all living beings. Also from their loving came Naga and the 4 lower Vayus. The sweat that poured from that rapturous time together of the Shakti of the Kalp became Varuna, the lord of the sea. From Varuna's left side also there was born a Devi, and she was his consort and was called Varuni. But the pregnancy of the first Shakti was interminable. It lasted for 100 manvantaras. Her form was refulgent with Ramatejas, and she rested upon Krishna's darkling breast. When 100 manvantaras had passed, the first Devi gave birth to a lustrous golden egg. Within it was the whole universe. But when the Devi saw the golden egg, she was sad and angry and flung it from her down into the seas of her salt ocean. When the Kalpa Krishna saw this, his eyes blazed and he cursed her. Cruel one, you have forsaken our firstborn son. Never have any more sons from now, and let the daughters who are born from you be issueless as well, and let them never know motherhood, but remain youthful forever. Even as he cursed her, O Muni, there sprang from her tongue a girl child, fair as a white lotus, exquisite. She wore shimmering white raiment and carried a veena and a sacred book, and she was adorned with brilliant ornaments. She was the goddess of the Shastras, the Devi, Saraswati. Then later Krishna's love became twain herself. From her left side there issued Lakshmi, and from her right side Radhika. Krishna, the Kalpapurusha, also became twain. From his right side there sprang a two-armed god, and from his left a four-armed one. The two-armed Kalpapurusha said to Saraswati Devi, "My four-armed Amsa shall be your lord from now on. Go with him." Turning to Radhika, he said, "You come with me, my haughty love." He turned again to Lakshmi, who stood quivering. "You go with the four-armed Narayana. Let him be your lord as well." Thus Narayana took the Devi Lakshmi and Saraswati to Vaikuntha, and both of them, having been born from Radha, were barren. From Narayana's very body there issued a host of divine servitors, all four-armed like himself, all splendid, all wise and dark as him. From the Devi Kamala, Lakshmi's body, there arose millions of bright women to be her Shaktis. They were lovely as the goddess they had been born from, immaculately from. Then from the Lord of Golok, Krishna's pores, there arose a great shining host of Gopas. They were all like him in appearance and in powers and wisdom. Each one was as dear to him as his life, and to be their consorts, Radha exuded from her pores the Gopikas, every one as sweet and delectable as herself. And they too were barren women like her, for Kalpapurusha Krishna's curse, and they would remain forever young. Then all on a sudden, Vishnu's Maya, Sri Durga, arose here, Swayambhuva, of herself, from herself, and she adored the Kalpapurusha as well. She was the avatara of the Mula Prakriti, not of Radha, the Kalpa Prakriti. Durga is Nayani. She is Isani. She is the Parashakti and the very mind and heart of the divine. She is Tejas. Her complexion is like molten gold. She is as lucific as 10 million suns, and she has 1,000 arms and hands, each one bearing an awesome weapons. She is three-eyed, and all the women of the time that are jewels of their kind have come from her alone. O Narada, this Durga Mula Prakriti is the seed of the tree of this world. She stood 1,000 hands folded before the Kalpapurusha, and he offered her a throne to sit upon. At that instant, from his navel there sprang four-faced Brahma, with his Savitri, holding a Kamandala in one hand and hymning Krishna from the four mouths. Krishna gave Brahma and his Savitri, dazzling like 1,000 full moons, a lofty jeweled throne to sit upon. And then Krishna divided himself again. His right side became Mahadeva, and his left side the dark and indigo lord of the Gopikas. Mahadeva's color was white as snow and moonbeams, and he shone like the finest crystal. In his hands he held the Trishul and the sharp patisa. He wore tiger skin, and his hair was matted in tawny jata that was the color of the sun in late afternoon. He was also Digambara, the quarters of the endless firmament being his raiment. Upon his camphor white body he wore ashes. His throat was blue, where he had once drunk poison. His ornament was a great serpent, and in his right hand he held a string of Rudraksha. He was Mrityunjaya, death's conqueror, and he took his place upon the throne that had been offered to him. Narayana paused, and Narada asked him, "And the golden egg, master?" The golden egg floated upon the Akarnava, the single and primordial sea, for an incredible amount of time. They say for as long as Brahma's life. Then it was cloven into two equal halves. Within the egg lay a lambent child, splendid as 1,000 million suns. But his mother, Radha, had forsaken him, and he could not feed at her breast or drink mother's milk, and so he began to cry. The child, who would be the lord of the numberless Brahmanas, countless universes, was an orphan, and he looked up into the sky with tears flowing down his face. Later he was called Viraj, and he had a 16th part of the power that the Kapapurusha wields. Truly he was the lord of all the galaxies, and there were spiral nebulae in every pore, so many that even Krishna could not count them all. There were countless amounts of Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas ruling these Brahmanas. Each Brahmanda has its own separate loka, stretching from Patala to Brahmaloka. Above the Brahmanas is Vaikuntha, and beyond that is Golaka. Golaka Dham is an eternal, as Krishna is himself. Just as there are 7 oceans and continents in the world, and 7 patalas below Bhumi, so there are 7 swargas above it. In order of ascent from the earth, they are Burloka, Bhuvaloka, Svaraloka, Janaloka, Taparaloka, Satyaloka, and finally Brahmaloka. The luminous of Brahmaloka has been likened to that of gold. But even these heavens are transcend, like the earth and the patalas. When each Brahmana dissolves, they are also put out, even like bubbles that have formed and floated briefly in the eternal current of time. It is told, O Muni, that in each Brahmana there are 30 million gods that live and die between its inception and its end. Some of these are Dikpatis, Palas, regions of the quarters. Others, Dikpatis, regions of the quarters. Others are Dikpalas, guardians of the quarters. Some are Grahas, planets, and other stars. In Burloka, there are the 4 Varnas of gods, and in the Patalas, the Nagas rule. When the Viraja Purusha, the splendorous child within the golden egg that had cracked open, looked up into the sky, he saw nothing but the sun, but the sunya, the void. A dreadful pang of hunger convulsed in him, and wailing loudly, he fell into a swoon. When he awoke again, that awesome infant began to think of his father, Krishna. At once he saw the immortal light of the Brahman, and within that light he saw Krishna, blue as thunder clouds, wearing a fulvous Pidambara robe, a radiant smile on his face, a flute in his hands, and grace flowing from him in tide. Seeing his father, the child grew glad and smiled sweetly. Krishna blessed him, saying, "May you have all the knowledge that I do. May your hunger and thirst vanish. May the numberless Brahmanas be contained by you until the pralaya. Be without ego or fear, and be the bestower of boons to all created. Let not age, sorrow, disease, or death afflict you." And bending down, he whispered the 6-syllable Krishna mantra into the child's ear, Om Krishnaya Namah. And he decreed that a 16th part of any offerings made upon any world in all the Brahmanas, the countless universes, shall go to Narayan, and the rest to this boy, Viraj. Sri Krishna kept nothing for himself, for he was always content within himself. Granting the magnificent child these boons, his father Krishna asked, "Now tell me, what other boon do you want from me?" And in his immense voice, his son replied, "Only grant me, Father, that for as long as I live, I have perfect bhakti for you." And Krishna said, "Be always as I am. Not even if 1,000 Brahmas are born and die shall you know age or tiredness. But cleave yourself into as many Virajas as there are Brahmanas, and thus rule each cosmos separately. In every universe from your navel shall spring the lotus in which Brahma is born. And from Brahma's brow shall spring the 11 Rudras who will destroy his creation. They shall issue from Brahma's face, but they shall be Amsas of Shiva. Of these 11, the Rudra called Kal Agni shall be the destroyer of the universe. Also from your Amsa, the numberless Virajas shall be born, countless Vishnus who shall preserve creation in all the Brahmanas. And indeed, you shall have infinite bhakti for me, so that you need but think of me, and you will see me before you. And you shall see your mother, this Radha, who dwells in my body, in my heart. I must leave you for now, for you have your great task of creation to embark upon. Dwell here at your ease, and bless you, my son. Bless you, bless you. Krishna vanished back into Golaka, the loftiest realm, which is immortal. In own abode, he spoke to his primal Brahma and Shankara. To Brahma he said, go and be born in Amsas from the lotus that sprout from the navel of all the countless Virajas that arise from my child's pores. You shall be the creator of all the universes. To Shiva he said, and you be born from the brow of all the Brahmas that Brahma becomes, for you shall be the one who destroys creation. And those two gods went forth to their missions. The Viraj, who now lay asleep upon the Ekanava, the single cosmic sea, began to divide himself into trillion parts, as from every pore of his skin, and Amsa Viraj was born. From the navel of each Viraj, a lotus thrust itself, and within it petals, a Brahma was born. For 100,000 yugas, Brahma wandered along the stalk of the infinite lotus. It could not discover from whence it sprang. Then Narada, your lotus-born father, returned to the pavilion of his birth and began to meditate upon the immaculate feet of Sri Krishna. And now in his dhyan, behind the petals of his eyelids, each Brahma saw the Amsa Viraj of his Brahmanda lying asleep upon the eternal sea. And beyond that vision, the Brahmas all saw the great original Viraj upon his sea of seas, in whose pores all the universes existed. And beyond that vision, he saw Sri Krishna in Golaka, the imperishable realm. Brahma hymned that Krishna and embarked upon creation. From Brahma's ancestral mind first were born Sanaka and the other Munis, who are the children of Brahma's pristine thought. Then the 11 Rudra issued from his brow. Then from the left side of the Amsa Viraj came Vishnu, the blue savior. Vishnu journeyed to Sveta Dvipa, where he remained. All the Brahmas created all their Brahmadas, like great symphonies in time and matter, in life, death, and rebirth. And they all had 3 realms, Swarga, Bhumi, and Patala. So said Narayana Muni to the absorbed Narada, said Vedavyasa. Jai Mahamaya ki jai, Vishveshvari Mata ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai.